Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's bang on 7 o'clock in the UK, so I think we'll kick off now. Thank you very much for joining the Overland Live session tonight. We have been running a couple of these webcasts. The first one took place the end of last year, and it was focused on Josephine and Frederick's trip around the world and also a little bit on the Congo. Tonight, we've got some special guests live from Colombia, and I'll introduce them in a short while. The Overland Live concept was created as a joint venture between the Africa Overland Network, which is myself, Martin Solms, and the team from Expedition Portal. So I'll be your host today. Please feel free to ping us an email with any comments that you might have, and at the same time, please use the chat window that people have been using as part of your WebEx screen. And then at the same time, we are picking up a Twitter, so use the hashtag Overland if you think we have done a good job, or if you've got any comments and would like the people on Twitter to hear all about it. We've got a few upcoming webcasts taking place and a list of future guests. At the end of this month, we've got Henny Rotenbach from the Overland Forum. Henny has been pretty key in South Africa in providing a lot of inspiration and a lot of motivation via the internet to the Overland community. He's been on the scene for a number of years, and his passion for overlanding in Southern Africa just brushes off on everybody that meets him. So he'll be sharing the dream of overlanding and living that dream, and a focus on overlanding within Southern Africa. Rolling into the first Sunday of February, we've got Toby Savage joining us, and he's about to go on a trip across the Sahara Desert as part of a reunion with regards to the Long Range Desert Group. So he's currently kitting out 2 World War II Jeeps, and he'll be taking those across the desert with a number of team members. So he'll be talking to us around, desert travel, rebuilding a World War II Jeep, and a couple of his other trips he's done in the Sahara Desert. We've also got some future guests lined up, and the dates are yet to be confirmed. I've got Andrew and Anne lined up from Scotland, and they'll be focusing on their trip, which was from Cape Town, from northern Scotland down to Cape Town with their 2 children in a Land Cruiser. We've also got Nathan the postman. He bought an old postman's motorbike in Australia from Sydney and drove it to the UK, and he's going to be picking up and sharing some of his stories and a comic book that he's got associated with their project. And a couple of other people we've got lined up. We've got Mick talking around overlanding in the Australian outback. We've got Greg and Alexis and their adventures in the Land Rover 1&1. And also Johan and Vota sharing the concept around Tracks for Africa, which is a unique project all about mapping the rural roads in Africa. I'd encourage you to hop on the Overland Live website. I'm trying to keep it as up-to-date as possible with the agenda. There are no talks scheduled for next week, but feel free to click on the register now, and it will give you an option to register and an email update as well. So live from Colombia and the Dream Hostel is Lewis and Lacey and their Lost World expedition. They are currently traveling, and they've kindly found a hostel tucked away in Santa Marta to bring us this live update, which is going to be pretty unique, and hopefully the bandwidth will survive and we'll be able to get a good update. I'd encourage you to use the chat window and to ask any questions and make it as interactive as possible. Lewis has a few slides that we'll run through, a little bit of a background around themselves and their current trip, and the unique thing, the fact that they're still traveling, what's in store for them over the next 6 months or within the next year.
Okay.
So this was just a photograph that I found as I searched for the Dreamer Hostel in Santa Marta. It looks very idyllic, and I'll ask our hosts to continue this. Please give us a moment just while I hand over the presentation mode to Lewis.
Okay.
Okay, so if you just want to go ahead and share.
Okay, so I'll try to start the presentation now for the slides. And I'm pretty sure that I won't be able to, once I hit the start, we won't be able to see the comments. So if maybe you can read them for me or interrupt if you see fit, I'd be happy to oblige. So that's us, Luis and Lacey. And I don't know, can you still see video from us?
Yes, we can.
Oh.
It's a bit dark, but it's
Okay, so yeah, we are at Santa Marta. We just got back from a wonderful trip to La Guajira, which is a pretty remote area that has been affected quite a bit by the rains here in Colombia. But it was a great trip, a lot of four-wheel drive action. So we're Luis and Lacey. That's a photo of us. We're
Sorry, Lewis, can you just share your application again? I'm not getting anything.
You're not?
No, just on the main screen, just click share application.
Huh. Thought I did. But I didn't. And how about now?
We had it up. Try again.
So basically.
Okay, there we go.
So we can't actually show the slides. So we'll show them like this, I guess. No, that's it. So you can see the slide, but if I hit the to play the presentation, you can't see it.
Try again. Sorry, apologies everyone. We just
it worked earlier.
Yeah, it was working earlier, as these things do.
So when I start so you can't see anything right now?
No, from my side I can. How about everybody else? You can just use the chat window.
Okay.
It was working, and now we're back to your window again.
Oh, it was working. Sorry, everybody.
Okay. No, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, this is it.
So basically, we are a couple that decided we didn't want to have a cubicle life in the States, and we love to travel. And while backpacking in Guatemala a few years ago, we met 3 overlanders, people driving the Americas, a couple in a motorcycle that were driving with a sidecar, and we realized that's what we wanted to do, and we planned for a few years, and we realized that driving allows us to visit any destination that we really wanted. Busing was not really what we wanted to do. It just gives us a lot more freedom to drive. Our vehicle and our home is a 1987 Toyota Land Cruiser, pictured here. We have a rooftop tent and several other, I guess we have a slide for it. We have the Land Cruiser. It had originally a gas engine. In the U.S., the diesel was not an option, and our gas engine was dying, so we replaced it with an Australian turbo diesel engine, and we basically planned the trip to be a year long, and we outfitted the vehicle as we saw fit for that 1 year. We changed the suspension. We replaced the fuel tank with a 40-gallon tank. We added redundant fuel filtration. We added a rear bumper with a spare tire in it, and a propane tank. with it and the jerry can for extra water. It's just 5 gallons though. A refrigerator, a stove for our kitchen, and a plywood homemade drawer system. We have a dual battery system, solar panel, an air compressor. I mean, these are things that we wanted to mention because it's things that we would definitely think that people should have, or at least something similar if they're planning on traveling. Camping lab, rooftop tent, and a side and rear awning, rack, and center console that allows us to leave things in the car. It's pretty bulletproof center console. What we would do differently, at least for our situation, is carry a heavier duty air compressor. It allows us to, the one we have is not 100% psyched, but we have to sometimes give it a break when we air down the tires to go off-road, and it's just essential to have a really good air compressor, at least in our opinion. Dual battery kit. I was naive enough to think that I could come up with a decent solenoid system, and it gave us nothing but problems for a long time. Then I replaced it in the road in Mexico, and it wasn't really a really good replacement. So I highly recommend getting a well-respected dual battery kit set up, perhaps an IBS or a National Luna. A solar panel that we have, we got once we had already started the trip, and it's also been a lot of trouble. It'd be really intelligent to prepare for that before you live on the trip. If you intend to do a lot of camping off the grid, or bush camping, I guess. A freshwater tank, we also, we don't have enough water. I mean, we tend to just carry as much water as we can buy, but it'd be nice to have an actual, 10 to 14 gallons, maybe more, with us. Also, we have only stock lighting. One of our main rules is not to drive at night, but even at dusk, it's nice to have better lighting, and we do wind up driving at night, and it's important to have really good lighting, especially in these roads with no lights and tons of dogs and cows and drunk people on the road, and et cetera, et cetera. So good lighting. Also, we purchased a tire size that we really like. It's a 33-inch tire. It's not really available in Latin America so far, and it's been a couple times. We've had 7 flats on our trip so far, so it's been quite a problem. Oh, hello? I think I lost my connection there for a second. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back down to your application.
As far as our planned route, this little map of the Americas is really mostly a doodle, but it is relatively similar to at least the route that we have taken and the route that we plan on taking. Basically, most of our plans have gone by the wayside long ago. I mean, even a few weeks into the trip, we realized we weren't going to be able to do what we planned, so we started kind of going by the seat of our pants. The trip was originally supposed to be only a year long. It quickly became a year and a half, and a year and a half into the trip, we were only in Panama. So we realized we would have to, either stop or modify the trip. So now we're looking at perhaps 4 more years on the road, and if we can figure out how to do it, we intend to stay on the road much longer. But we already have pretty much 2 more years allotted for the trip, so we'll be in South America for the next 2 years. The general idea from now on, we're in Colombia, is to head south to Ushuaia, southernmost tip of Argentina, on the west coast with some zigzagging inland, and then back towards Buenos Aires and Brazil on the west coast, and then head up to perhaps Venezuela we're not sure if we're going to go to Suriname or French Guiana, but it's always a possibility. Um, Basically, really quick, we did about 4.5 months around the U.S. We did about 4.5 months in Mexico, and then 6 months following that, we did pretty much every country in Central America for anywhere from a couple of months to 3 weeks each. We spent quite a bit of time in Panama and in Costa Rica. We actually rented an apartment in Bocan area in highlands of Panama, which was really interesting. Here's a few more pictures. Um, so we've been basically living out of the truck. We have slept in our rooftop tent over 350 days in the last 500 plus days. We really love the rooftop tent and our setup, but it is quite trying at times, and at sometimes we really wish we had an inside living area. And every time we hang out with our German overlanding brethren with big, Unicats and Mon-based overlanding vehicles, we're quite jealous of their inside, but we like the versatility of our setup as well, so it kind of goes back and forth. Having the rooftop tent and our kitchen, it truly provides us with a very comfortable home as long as the weather cooperates. It does get kind of dodgy when it's, we've been caught in the rainy season for the last couple of months, not like 4 months or so. It just seems to keep going. It's still raining here in Colombia, even though we're a month into the dry season, supposedly. We're actually, our rooftop tent, somehow the bag that covers it completely just melted. All the glue that held it together just disappeared. So we're having it rebuilt or replaced, I guess, in Colombia, and we're actually waiting for that. So we're staying in a hostel because of that. And we highly recommend having a fan. I mean, even I'm assuming the Africa folks that are present know about that. I don't know. We'll find out in a few years, hopefully, if we get there. And in Latin America so far, it's been essential to ask at hotels and restaurants and beaches and homeowners and landowners if you can camp in the property. Everybody is really open to let you, maybe for a few bucks and maybe sometimes not at all. It's been great, actually, so far. And this is our rooftop tent setup. You can kind of see the kitchen in the back. We couldn't really find the picture. We're missing our hard drive at the moment, so we had only a few pictures on the laptop hard drive. So in December of last year, I said 2010, we shipped from Cologne to Cartagena finally, so we're in South America as of about a month now. We've been in Colombia for a month. And we looked into driving through the Darien Gap, and you can kind of do it, but you need really, really deep pockets and a lot of time and patience. We definitely don't have the deep pockets. We have the time, and we have a little bit of patience, or at least Lacey does. So we shipped. It was not that bad. As every border crossing and everybody that's crossed the border in a vehicle knows, you have to have patience. We used an agent, and it was actually cheaper than doing it by ourselves by almost $100 US dollars. But it's definitely doable if you do it by yourself. Speaking Spanish is almost a must, but not necessarily. We started planning long before we got to Panama, and using the forums, Expedition Portal, Africa Overland Network, Drive the Americas, and the hub worked quite well. We found somebody through Drive the Americas, and it was great. It was a lot cheaper to share a 40-foot container than doing a 20-footer by maybe $300 or more US dollars. It took us about 3 days in Panama, between Panama City and Colón, to ship the vehicle out of Panama, and it took us at least 2 days of just constant hassle in Cartagena to get the vehicle back. If life insurance is mandatory in Colombia in order to go to your vehicle, it's kind of interesting. In order to get into the port, you need life insurance. We didn't have life insurance, and they had basically the staff of the port got the vehicle, so they were kind enough to steal a few things while they moved the vehicle. They make sure the things they take are small enough so that you don't notice for a while, or it's not big enough for you to complain. But they did take a few essential tools and a couple of and they kind of messed up our car as well. But that's a complicated story. I wanted to say a few things we've learned, and a lot of you that have traveled probably know these already. But planning is really important. It's nice to know the areas you're visiting, but it's even more important to be flexible and adapt to the change that comes your way. It's a lot more important than the planning itself. Adapting is a lot more important.
Because the changes are going to come no matter what. So
definitely. Weather especially is pretty interesting. Always be open to listening to other travelers and locals to find new places to visit. And actually, most of our best experiences were due to recommendations by others. In fact, one of the people listening here right now, Mundo Fuentes, was our host in Los Mochis, Mexico. And without him, it would have been a completely different experience. We probably would have just driven through that town. So getting to know a local or somehow meeting a local for couch surfers or whatever has made a huge difference. Then a big one is while dealing with public officials, just keep a smiling face and just nod. Just patience once again is key. I learned the hard way that in Honduras that it does not pay lose your patience. Lacey was afraid for my life in Honduras, but it was horrible. We got ripped off pretty good, but it happened. Then we've learned also that it's good to take your time, but it's important to be aware of the season. We got caught by a particularly bad rainy season in Central America and here in Colombia, so perhaps that's one thing to plan around that's pretty important to stick to. Another thing is we've met people that don't try local food. They literally cook all their food, and we've made a point of trying street food and local food, and it's been great. We've gotten sick, and in fact, I'm kind of under anyway, I'm sick at the moment, but it's just part of it, and you're going to get sick whether you eat your own food or theirs. Also, we believe that the attitude that you have, whether it's with police or even border officials and locals, has a completely different outcome on how you experience a place. If you're in a bad mood, it's almost better to just stay in your campground and not go anywhere for a while. And also, a shameless plug that I wanted to share is that an iPhone has been ridiculously useful. I mean, we've used it all throughout Central America for internet, for taking photos. We have it unlocked and jailbroken, so we use it for Skype. It's really easy to get local SIM cards for it, and you can get internet a lot cheaper than in the U.S. It's been really, really nice having the iPhone in Central and South America so far. Granted, one country. So, plug. I'm not getting anything from them, but still. So short and sweet. If you have any questions, please let us know. We're here for quite a while.
So thanks very much for that update. Just as a general announcement, please feel free to, if you have a microphone, to unmute and ask a question. There are roughly about 6 microphones, and there's a little button that says pass the microphone. So please feel free to ask a couple of questions or to use the chat window. Lewis, I got a couple of questions that popped up. The first one on the vehicle. Why 7 punctures?
Well, actually, two of them were the wheels themselves. It was kind of interesting. We're using the original wheels. They're 15-inch wheels, and they're the originals that came in '87 with the truck. And they actually failed from the inside. There's a small crack on the wheels, and we were lucky enough to find one in, I don't know, I think Guatemala perhaps, and replace it. And the other one, we actually did 3 weld beads on the inside, and that's still holding to this day. One was just a nail, and then a couple of others. To be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, BF Goodrich, I've been using them for ages, and I don't even remember the last time I had a flat, and it's been 7 flats in a year and a half.
We have actually spent a lot of time on kind of not necessarily on the highways, out on dirt roads, out small towns and things like that. So I don't know if maybe we just happened to pick up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's more luck than anything.
Yeah.
We had one pretty bad sidewall damage also, so it's been luck more than anything. I don't think it was, other than the wheels, it wasn't like product failure or anything.
Right, okay. I've got a question from Henny, and he was asking around the diesel engine that you actually fitted. Was it the standard cruiser one, or and was it an import from directly from Australia? Can you elaborate a little bit?
We were lucky enough to find a friend in Oregon who his pastime is Land Cruisers. He loves Land Cruisers, and he has a love for diesel as well. So he imports what they call half cuts. So it's basically half of the vehicle. So it's a 12 HT diesel engine from a Land Cruiser from Australia, an '86 Land Cruiser, and we rebuilt the engine just in case. It had pretty low mileage though. It's a wonderful engine. I can't believe I ever used a gas engine on a Land Cruiser.
Is it what size engine is it? Out of interest?
It's a 6-cylinder. Is it 4.3? I don't know actually. I should probably know this, right?
Yeah, I'm sure somebody does. A question from Ryan. Given the rainy season that you've currently been experiencing, and your rooftop tent, and the fact that you've been having to pack it up wet, how's that worked out so far? Having a soaked vehicle.
It's been interesting. We spent quite a few days drying out our couch. Our bed and bedding, hoping that it would be dry for the nightfall.
So one good thing with the rainy season on most days, which some days it does actually rain all the way through the entire day, but a lot of days it rains really hard in the afternoon and most of the way through the night, but there tends to be a few hours of sun in the morning.
Yeah.
So that has helped us. Usually we pretty much just get up and pull up all of our stuff out and put it in the sun and try to get it dried out as much as possible when we can.
And have you found that?
Our rooftop tent is it's a South African tent. It's a My Way, and I'm not sure if we don't have any experience with any other ones, but they're definitely not designed for this kind of just downpour, where like it's literally buckets of rain. We definitely had some minor issues with the rain, at least with this particular tent.
Perfect. And a question from Nuno, just with regards to the fridge. Have you found it to be essential, or is it a piece of equipment that you could have left behind?
No, not for us. We love food, so we do a lot of cooking, and without the refrigerator, it would be just a huge hassle. Depending on your lifestyle and how you travel, I don't think it might not be essential. For us, it is definitely essential. I must say though, the one thing we don't like about the Engel, we have an Engel 45, and it does not have a thermostat. It's a huge failure in their part, I think, especially when the competition, I mean, I think Waco and National Luna both have thermostats, and that truly is a bit of a problem. We've had sometimes stuff freeze, and sometimes it's not quite cold enough because you have to kind of tweak with the dial depending on how hot the day is. But we think it's essential. I mean, it's wonderful to have. I mean, if you catch a fish fishing, you can have it for a couple of days. If you can buy food and go out and not have to worry about ice, it really is awesome.
Excuse me. Great feedback. Yeah, thanks. A couple more questions coming up. Any tips on keeping your rooftop tent free of mold, or have you just back to how you commented on airing it enough as soon as there's...
Like we said, we've basically slept in it, like most of the time. In fact, the only time we had a problem with mold was we stayed 3 weeks at a friend's house in Costa Rica, so we didn't use the tent. It was a mistake not to leave it open, but we had mold inside the car everywhere as well. It was pretty interesting. I mean, it was like a greenish hue and powder inside the truck. But the tent itself, no problem at all, actually. Even in the Costa Rican humidity and Panamanian humidity, it was not a problem.
Okay, that's great. The Dina from Newcastle in the UK has asked the budget question, which is always an interesting one because I find the majority of overlanders never really keep a track and kind of start out with a budget in mind, but either blow it or either come home with lots. Any comments on that?
It's really interesting because that's pretty much people don't even ask us how we're liking it. I mean, that's the first question people ask sometimes. But we started out keeping a really detailed track of what we were spending and how much fuel we were using, and that quickly disintegrated into let's try not to spend any money today, or it's really. And as far as like how, like, is the question more like where we get the budget or how much we spend? Is that sort of?
Yeah. So how much you kind of budgeting for the day? I think
we've figured out that it truly depends on where you are and how much you're willing to not do or where you're willing to sleep. We've gone whole month where we spent $350 in the month, and then we've gone months where we spend close to $2,000 in a month. So, but the choice is always there, pretty much. I think, no?
Yeah, I think that you can pretty much, if you're sleeping in a tent and you're kind of, I mean, definitely depending on the country, different countries are different prices, but just really cooking your own food and kind of staying out away from cities, you can live off of very little. The cities are where it usually gets us because, I mean, cities are just more expensive. It's harder to camp. We end up eating out a lot. So that starts to add up. So, but you can kind of go either way. If when we get to the end of our budget and we need to save some money, then we generally try to find a beach or somewhere where we can camp and not spend money for a few days, and that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, excellent. I think just on an admin note, you could probably turn your chat window on now because your application's not live. So have a go at that, and you can see a few more of the actual questions popping up.
Oh yeah.
And then a couple more interesting ones, and we'll pick up again from Henny with regards to GPS and kind of off the beaten tracks. Have there been tracks, or you're relying totally on paper maps, or what's the kind of GPS mapping availability like?
It's in some places it's available. It's usually, in fact, Garmin has maps for a lot of places that they don't sell in the U.S. for some reason, but they're usually ridiculously expensive, so we haven't bought them. We've pretty much relied on paper maps. We do have a GPS that was actually kindly given to us by Scott Brady, who I just noticed was here, and it's worked out wonderfully, but without tracks. Without maps loaded, but it's actually really useful because you can, if you're going off the beaten path, you can, keep your tracks, and then you can find a way out and maybe share the tracks later with other people. We were lucky enough here in Colombia to run into Hernando, who's a Expedition Portal Forum member, and he actually gave us the whole pretty detailed map of Colombia. But no, in Central America, it was pretty much paper map for us and word of mouth.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's perfect. And if you are online in the future, the Tracks for Africa is a fairly unique concept, and I'm pretty sure that team would love to touch base with you for some of your tracks for Central and South America. A question for those kind of from Africa. We know that traveling in Africa, malaria is a known issue, and one of the questions that Bergam asked as well is how do you avoid insects? Because it sounds like there's quite a few. So can you comment on things like malaria and other insect issues?
We would like to say we're well prepared, but it seems like insects could care less about the concentration of DEET you use, because as a matter of fact, I'm covered right now in bites from a visit to the Guajira Peninsula, even though we were using repellent. We actually don't use malaria prophylactics. We didn't like the side effects, so we're...
And it was just pretty much we would be in malaria zones for too long. I mean, we would be taking them for the next year or more. And so we decided that we're not going to go with that route and just...
We're hoping that, basically, it's really luck because we are getting bit quite a bit. Actually, I am getting bit more than Lacey is. Apparently, I have sweeter blood, but... So yeah, basically no. In fact, we don't have a yellow fever vaccine. We probably should do that. But other than that, that's it. We're not really the most well prepared when it comes to vaccines and stuff like that.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. Yeah. Everything's insightful, and I know from commenting from South Africa, things like malaria is a hotly debated topic, whether you should take something or not. Yeah. We've had a couple of questions just around your cooking setup and just the general cooking setup. I noticed Ryan mentioned as well that you've got a propane tank, and Karen asked just with regards to your food stuff. And can you just elaborate, or should I direct this question to Lacey?
No, actually,
the cook, so.
Yeah, sorry, we don't fit that. I'm actually an avid cook. I wish we had our hard drive, our external hard drive, because we're actually limited to whatever pictures are on my computer at the moment. But we have a pretty well stocked kitchen. In fact, the kitchen takes over most of our truck. Yeah, I mean, this is not even a good picture of it. We carry a partner steel stove. It's a 2-burner stove that's really better than any host stove we've been in since we left the U.S. It's pretty amazing. We have a 5-gallon propane tank. I think it's called a 20-pounder in the U.S. You can see it, and there's a picture here on my desktop. It's right behind me, and it's just strapped quite simply to the 4x4 laps bumper right next to the water tank. And we've actually only refilled that tank, I think, 3 times in the entire trip. And you can see the kitchen right next to me there. It's that wooden contraption. And it's a drawer that goes into the back of the truck. Um, I don't know if there's any specific questions. Let me see. The yeah, it's actually almost a ridiculous setup. I mean, we have almost, we have like a sail, a really nice pot and pan setup that usually is used in sailboats. We have just about any knife you can think of. We have just about every spice you can think of. It's basically my home kitchen in the truck, so I'm not short-handed other than by the electrical stuff that I don't have at home.
Okay, perfect. If any other comments around the kitchen, please just type it up. Thanks very much. Just another admin note. I've just turned off the actual desktop sharing.
Okay.
Just hopefully the bandwidth will improve.
Okay.
We've seen majority of your photographs.
Okay.
A couple of more of kind of like the logistics side, and if you could fill us in what you're doing around visas and whether you're picking them up or if you need them at all, and does your vehicle need a carnet de passage to get between all the various different countries? So can you elaborate on that?
Sure. In the Americas, there is no need for a carnet de passage. I'm assuming that Europeans don't need it either, but I can't comment without with 100% validity. So yeah, it's been actually fairly simple to cross borders. I mean, granted, we had a horrible border crossing in Honduras, but other than that, it takes anywhere from 45 minutes to a few, 2-3 hours, but no problem at all. It's been a lot better. We still dread the border crossings, I must say, but other than that, the only border crossing we had a problem in was Honduras. And
as far as visas go, so far in Central America, at least for U.S. citizens, that's kind of all we can really speak to, I guess. Central America, you don't need any visas prior to your arrival. It's more just going to customs and getting your entry stamp. South America, as far as we know, the countries that we're aware of is Bolivia. I believe maybe Argentina just started, and Brazil do require a visa to enter, and there's a payment involved with that. We haven't looked into whether we need to get it ahead of time or if you can get it actually at the border yet. But so besides those three countries, as far as so far, we just go to the border and are able to cross right then.
Okay, that's great. And I think it leads on to that fantastic comment you put on your website around patience, which I'm clearly going to steal. Learn it, adopt it, and live it.
yeah.
I very much like that. I think a few tweets are going to have to go out on that one.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the mantra that you have to live by when dealing with any bureaucratic official, really. But the borders are definitely
truly have not. I must admit, I have not adopted it. I'm trying, but it's just so hard sometimes because I just saw Henny comment, asked if there's any honest officials, and I must say,
there's a few.
There's a few. We've definitely met very few honest cops. I hate to say it, but it really, most of the time, we've learned to deal with them by just waiting them out. That's our newest technique. When we get pulled over, which is fairly often, they'll come up with whatever reason they have for pulling us over, and they'll say, well, the ticket's $400. And then some of them tell you that you can pay for the ticket on the spot. Some of them will tell you, well, we got to go back to the office to pay for it. So what we usually say is, okay, let's go pay for it. And then they try to keep going with well, it's easier if you pay it here. And what we wind up saying is, no, we'll pay for it. Don't worry about it. And if you have enough patience and time, you can usually just you know, they'll let you go because they get tired. They figure they might as well try their money somebody else. If you can trust your cops, who can you trust? I trust Lacey. That's about it.
As far as the bribes go, though, as with the cops, we've only actually paid one bribe in Mexico to cops. That was actually on Christmas Eve, and the cop was pretty jovial about it, and so we kind of figured it was his Christmas bonus. I think we gave him like $5 or something.
Yeah, and everybody else.
Yeah, and then we actually have paid one ticket where we had to turn around and go back to the bank and pay the ticket. But of all the numerous times that we've been pulled over, those are the only two instances that something actually came of it. So
we've always stuck to not paying, and it's been pretty good.
Oh, that's perfect. So from my side, I'm kind of running out of questions. I noticed that
Scott asked our favorite destination, and we can say our favorite country by far was Mexico. So far, yes. We are in Colombia. We still have, 12, 13 countries to go in the Americas. But Mexico was just amazing. You know, Guatemala was great. I mean, every country was great, but Mexico as a whole really surprised us.
There's a big variety of...
Plus the food. We love food, and the food in Mexico has no equal in the Americas. It just doesn't, except for maybe steak in Argentina, which I'm looking forward to as well.
As far as the ancient sites go, we visited quite a few in Mexico and Guatemala.
I would say
probably Tikal.
Tikal is probably my favorite ancient site.
Which is in northern Guatemala.
But there's a really nice small one near Palenque. What's the name?
Tonina.
Yeah, Tonina. And it was really small, and therefore it didn't have as much tourists in it. And you have pretty much green card. You can just go anywhere in the ruins, which was really wonderful. It was really quaint, and it felt good. It's funny, Edmundo asked whatever happened to the newbies of a year ago. We met Edmundo basically only a month into our Mexican excursion, and we were still pretty nervous about driving around at that time. I mean, we felt like, you know, we were still kind of scared about traveling. And after we visited Edmundo, we went to the Copper Canyon, which is one of the highlights of our trip. And I must say, I feel more comfortable on the road and sleeping in our rooftop tent than back home, or definitely more comfortable than in a hotel. Then we've stayed in a couple of hostels where we've actually experienced bed bugs for the first time, and definitely don't have that problem in our rooftop tent. Oh, so Espen from which is Unurban just asked if you were short on time, which country in Central America would you skip? Well, I would definitely skip Honduras.
but that's not necessarily to say that Honduras doesn't have a lot of good things.
We just had a bad experience, but we've been there before and we actually enjoyed it, but we weren't driving that time. But I must say, we really enjoyed Belize. Guatemala, definitely do not skip Guatemala.
El Salvador was a really, really pleasant surprise. Really beautiful things in that country.
So does that mean you're running short on time, Espen? Anyway, anything else you have to say, Martin?
No, I don't have anything from my side. Any other questions that any of our guests might have?
Back to food. We love food. I can talk about that forever. We have to. Okay, so somebody just asked if we're planning on working along the way or just relying on the budget, and we won't work for money probably because we'd mostly be earning local wages, which will be pretty much useless as far as for extending the trip. But what we will do is there's a couple of websites that provide experiences in volunteering in exchange for room and board, and that will exchange I will extend our ability to travel, and it'll also give us a way to like get to know an area a lot more intimately. So we're looking forward to that, but we won't do that probably for another couple of months.
So back to back to Henry's question. Just to elaborate on the actual meat, and I'm curious about this one as well. So
it's interesting because we've I'm very familiar with American cuts of beef, and I think what we've noticed is I think Central and South America have a reputation for having bad beef, and the truth is it's not bad at all. The problem is, well, in some places it is pretty bad, but in some places there's no like designated cuts, and the butchers generally don't know how to cut the meat, so they cut it with the grain sometimes. You never know what part of the beef the cut you're getting is from, so you wind up getting meat that might be a good actually quality but a bad cut, and that ruins the experience altogether. So unless you, I mean, what we've tried to do is find a place that has beef that looks of good quality, and then have them grind it for us on the spot. And at least ground meat or ground beef is not, it is going to be soft. But a lot of times they butcher the meat, and not in the literal sense. They do it badly. But it is good quality. But we do tend to stick to chicken and fish and pork. Pork is generally quite good, and chicken is easy to tell if it's not good. And I fish, and we try to find, and fish is probably the easiest meat or source of protein as far as that you can tell it's fresh, Although there is a lot of farmed fish coming into Central and South America, so there's a lot of tilapia now, which is good and bad, I guess. And it's reasonable. Actually, the beef, for example, here in Colombia is really cheap. And there's good supermarkets that have pretty nice, clean looking butcher shops. There's still the typical market, beef hanging in the market all day. And it's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you know what you're looking at.
A question that popped up from Karen with regards to travelers taking their pets. Have you met anyone? And
we have actually. We've only met one person in person with traveling with their giant schnauzer. But we're actually following at least 2 or 3 people's websites who are traveling with dogs. We didn't bring our dog. One, because we traveled with him in the U.S. and he did not really enjoy the vehicle, and 2, because we heard one particular story of a family who had their dog sprayed with some kind of insecticide at the border, and then started losing his hair a few days after that. So we left our dog with our family in the U.S.
Yeah, but there are a few websites out there where they have their dogs, and they do a pretty good job, I think, of documenting how things are going with that as far as that end goes. I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head, and I can't actually.
Yeah, well, there's, never mind. I'm not going to remember. I was looking at Bergen, asking if we had any flats in really bad places, and the truth is, not really, and we
just have one in Guatemala.
Yeah, not really. I mean, we have a spare, and we have pretty good skills.
And an air compressor.
And an air compressor, so yeah. Actually, one thing that we kind of messed up is that I had a really nice tire repair kit, and I left it back home. Not the brightest move. So I highly recommend carrying a nice tire repair kit. What problems would you encounter? would we encounter getting along without Spanish? Without any Spanish, you know, as far as the cop experience goes, getting pulled over, it almost is better to not know any English, Spanish, because you can just be like, no hablo español, and if you say it enough, they'll also just let you go. We've seen it happen on other people's websites. But I would at least, if you are planning on driving, maybe stay in Oaxaca and do an intensive English class for a couple of months. I really think that knowing the language, or at least a little bit of it, will help you a lot with locals and with border crossings, etc. No?
Yeah, I think a little bit of working knowledge of Spanish is pretty important. I think that it would make life a lot easier, and also I think it really enhances the experience because you're able to, you know, just get to know places better, talk to locals a little bit more, and it kind of, you know, helps that end of it too as well.
I highly recommend having some Spanish. I mean, it's easy for me to say I'm fluent, but Lacey has done leaps and bounds since we left. Lacey does Rosetta Stone irregularly, and then she did an immersion class in a couple of places in Guatemala, and it's actually quite
affordable.
Yeah, it's affordable.
And you can do homestays with a lot of families, which kind of is an interesting thing. But I definitely recommend, if you don't speak Spanish,
bye, Karen,
trying to get some sort of lessons along the way.
I saw another question, but the stuff in the movies about Colombia. I think I mentioned we met this guy. He owns a 4x4 part shop in Colombia, throughout Colombia actually. He's got shops everywhere. It's called Iguana 4x4. And Hernando had told us that this truly was no man's land just, you know, maybe less than 10 years ago. But it's night and day. I mean, we've traveled fairly far off the beaten path into the Guajira Peninsula, which is still fairly no man's land, but we have not yet felt unsafe in any way. It's been amazing. The police and military presence is quite palpable. I mean, in Cartagena, for example, which is a pretty big tourist destination, I would, without exaggerating, say there's at least 2 cops for every 5 tourists. Yeah, I mean, there's still spots where the FARC is present, but it's really calmed down quite a bit. And we've only been in the northeast coast so far, so I can't really speak for the rest of the country, but we've met people that have been all around the country, and they haven't had any problems. Well, we have a friend that got robbed in Bogota a few days ago, but I mean, that can happen, and we've heard of that happening in just about every country, including the U.S., so it's not a problem. Just like Mexico, really. I mean, Mexico, granted, this was a year ago. Last November, we crossed into Mexico. We were there for 4.5 months, and not once did we feel unsafe. And I'm not sure if things have changed. I think Edmundo could say if it had or not, but it's been amazing. Cost of living and diesel prices compared to the U.S. It's varied quite a bit. In some countries, it's been almost the same as the U.S. And in fact, here in Colombia, going back to La Guajira, diesel is, for some reason, La Guajira is bordering Venezuela, and most fuel is probably illegally imported from Venezuela. And we literally filled the truck, the 40-gallon tank, for, how much was it? $20? $25? Anyway, it was ridiculously inexpensive. But the rest of Colombia, it's about
$4 a gallon.
$4 a gallon, which is more expensive than in the U.S. Food-wise, it's also been all over the map. And also depending on what ingredients you buy, where you buy them, there's like really supermarkets that are dedicated to each, like, I guess, I hope it doesn't sound politically incorrect, but for each social strata. So you can go to a supermarket that's extremely expensive and go to another one that is a lot more basic, but the food and the ingredients are a lot cheaper. It's really all over the place. But Colombia, I must say, is pretty expensive, no? Yeah. So far, Colombia has been more expensive than we expected it to be by quite a bit. I don't know I think we're running out of questions.
Yeah, well, thanks to everybody for all the great questions that have made this session very interactive. And to Lewis and Lacey, thank you very much for your time and finding that hostel with the good internet connection. All the emails.
We were in another hotel last night, and the internet wasn't working this morning, so we had to find another place. We're not even staying in this hostel.
Well, thanks again very much, and
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we were pretty nervous, but it wasn't so bad after all.
Perfect, thanks, and safe travels onwards, and on your patience, learn it, adopt it, and live it, and we will certainly be following your Facebook and your website. Thanks very much.
All right,
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.